Can you hear? No. Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. There were many times my mom had finagled bringing me to her various places of employment when I was a kid. Other times she left me at home alone, which usually didn't work out so well in one way or another for either of us. Babysitters were not a common occurrence because of pricing. You see, we were broke as shit and often lived on government assistance, at least during summers. Roommates helped, as did friends and foreign exchange students who stayed with us in our old, creaky, rented house. But as for family, my mom and I had only each other. This is what being a low-income single mother in the early 90s was, accessorizing with your child being your main accessory. One summer morning when I was 8, my mom had to go to work without me. I will be back exactly at 1 p.m., she announced. And then she ran down the usual list of rules, regulations, and protocols. Don't answer the door to anyone. Keep all doors and windows closed and locked. Do not, under any circumstances, turn on the stove. Here's a number where you can reach me. It'll be taped on the phone, etc., etc. There are always sticky notes and instruction cards taped on everything in our house. The rules of the house for all to follow. She kissed and hugged me and then hauled ass to the workhouse. While she was gone that morning, I decided to get creative with my newly acquired fashion foam Barbie kit, gifted to me by my granny. This Barbie set came with 2 cans of colored foam, blue and pink. I believe the company's concept was for children to design outfits made of foam for Barbie to wear. Well, that just seemed too unoriginal of an idea for me since the company had already thought of it. I decided to get to work redecorating the bathroom with my own inspired foam art installation. The mirrors, tub, and sink were my canvas. Entirely new symbols and shapes were invented. Shades of purple never before seen by the human eye were created that day, and I may have even hacked into a new language algorithm. By the time my mom returned home that day, I thought I had wiped and rinsed everything sparkling clean and was sitting on the couch reading like a perfect little scullery maid. But alas, as soon as she set foot in the bathroom, I could tell by her screams and lamentations of bloody hell, why is everything purple, that my work was not to her liking. From then on, she resolved to bring me to work whenever possible. Once my mom had enough of my artistic antics, she had a solution. In the afternoons before a night shift of catering or bartending, she would have a power nap, and while she dozed, she would allow me to carefully style her hair and move her arms and legs into positions like a Barbie doll. She would also allow me to select her attire for the evening and lightly place the articles over her like a paper doll, even if her real outfit for every evening was always the penguin suit. Every now and then, she would allow me even to use her makeup kit on her face, but most often she refused my cosmetic services because my techniques were a little bit too edgy. Once the nap time makeover was complete, I would look at her adoringly, and as she snored softly, a string of saliva slowly trickling down one side of her mouth, and think to myself, she really was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Then I would cautiously tiptoe away so as not to wake her, as though my leaving would disrupt her slumber. In retrospect, the image of my mother in her role as Dolly must have looked shockingly morbid to any roommate or foreign exchange student who was not privy to our game. When I was 9, my mom got a job, one of many, as a bartender at a humbly beautiful and scenic bed and breakfast called the Mountain Home Inn. It sat on a ridge of our local mountain range, Mount Tamalpais, just on the edge of Muir Woods, California. The vistas and views were spectacular in all directions, as were the deadly cliffs and precipices. It was also around this time that my mother had managed to drag us out of severe poverty, with some assistance, of course. She had purchased a brand new used car after our old Dodge Omni with its rusted, busted body and passenger door that locked only by violently slamming it shut, finally sputtered its last breath. This new car was a silver Hyundai, and he was a beauty. It was a he because my mom had decided to name him James. Home James, she would say aloud before driving us anywhere, as though we had a chauffeur. James, the car, was our chauffeur. It seemed that we're finally moving up in the world, thanks to something called government assistance. Who knew that stuff really worked? Another wonderful perk to this new job was that while my mom was bartending or bussing tables, I could come with her and stay in a spare suite if the inn was not full for the night. Of course, there were rules and stipulations attached. Don't move anything. Keep all trash in this shopping bag. Don't touch or use the complimentary soaps or towels. Sleep only on top of the bedding, etc., etc. One evening, after a productive game of Dolly, my mom and I drove up the steep and winding mountain road to our shiny new used car James for her shift at the Mountain Home Inn. We were running a bit late because my mom had to take time to paste down the spiky bits of her hair still sticking up at the front of her hairline. I'd gone for a punk look in this episode of Dolly, requiring lots of hair gel. Once we had parked and my mom handed me the keys, "I have to run in right now or I'll be late," she announced. She yelled after me to grab my stuff and meet her in the lobby as she jogged to the employee entrance. I began gathering my school books and papers, shoving them into my backpack as ordered. I then looked for my sweatshirt, which I easily located, crumpled in the back seat. As I leaned back, reaching one arm to grab it, I heard something click and then move beneath my arm. As I looked out and up through the driver's side window, the scenery outside seemed to be moving, albeit ever so slowly. That's silly, I thought, as I began to pull my sweatshirt on. The car isn't on. How could it be moving? As I popped my head out of the neck of the sweatshirt, I looked up again and jumped. The car was definitely moving and slowly gaining speed. I knew there was something called the emergency brake, which was located between the two front seats. That must have been what I had leaned on and somehow released. I pushed the button at the front of the brake stick, but nothing happened. I tried pulling it up and down, but it didn't budge. In hindsight, and I'm sure you already know this, the combination of pushing the button in while pulling the lever up was the exact move that had stumped me. Time was running out for me as our beautiful James began to roll backwards down the driveway and out into the winding mountain road. I was now out of the car with the passenger door open. I gripped the door with one hand as I attempted to steer the car with my left hand on the frame of the door. With all of my 69 pounds of body weight, I tried to stop our James from rolling into the road. It was then that I spotted two couples in the distance on an evening stroll. "Help me!" I screamed as I began crying out of sheer desperation. My mom is going to be so mad. The man of the couple closest to me began jogging towards me, but it was too late. "Just let it go, kid," he yelled breathlessly as he continued to run toward me. Our car was now nearing the edge of the mountain cliff. "Let it go on my count of 3, he ordered. I nodded as I began sobbing even harder in defeat. 1. My feet were sliding and losing grip on the dusty dirt shoulder of the road. 2. I yanked once more at the door in one last feeble attempt to keep James on solid ground. 3. He barked, and I let go of the shiny silver door of the nicest thing we had ever owned. I buckled to my knees and waited for the sound of metal bending over rocks or an explosion. as I stared at my dirt-covered shoes. But nothing happened. The man finally caught up to me. "Holy shit," I heard him say, and then he laughed, gasping for breath. "Look, kid." He patted my back and pointed me over the ravine. I wiped my eyes and reluctantly peeked over the edge to see our glorious James teetering halfway down the cliff. The open door had somehow managed to lodge itself on a large shrub, keeping it wedged in place as the open door alarm dinged furiously. The man asked me where my parents were, to which I shakily pointed across the road toward the inn. He told me to wait there as he ran to find my parent. As soon as I saw my mom burst out of the front door of the inn, wild-eyed, I burst into tears again. "I'm sorry," I screamed helplessly. When she reached me, she clutched me to her. "Oh my God," was all she could say. The fire department was called, and James managed to be hauled up and onto the road. As the sun set over the mountain ridge, one of the firemen even tried hitting on my mom with her edgy new punk rock look. She was obviously the most beautiful woman in the world. That night, after my mom had finished her shift, James dutifully chauffeured us back to the winding mountain road. Aside from a mildly bent passenger door, which now, like the old car, needed to be slammed shut in order to be closed properly, hey, you can't have it all. We had all miraculously survived yet another adventure in single parenting. Thank you.